It is the late afternoon of May 7, 1429, at Les Tourelles, just outside of the city of Orléans. The assault on the main English fortification has been grinding on since dawn. The fighting is the worst of the entire siege. Hand-to-hand combat on a narrow bridge over the Loire. Men falling into the river below, drowning under the weight of their own armor. The English are holding. They've been holding this position for 7 months now, and they intend to keep holding it. Joan feels it before she registers the cell. A bolt of white-hot pain punches through the gap between her breastplate and her shoulder guard, driving deep into the flesh just below her collarbone. She stumbles. Her legs give way. Soldiers catch her before she hits the ground. They carry her behind the lines. A field surgeon, experienced, rough-handed, the kind of man who spend years pulling bolts out of soldiers, examines the wound. It is serious. Deep enough that infection, which kills more soldiers than any English arrow, is almost certain if she doesn't rest for weeks. The French commanders see their opening. Joan is down. The assault is failing. The English defenses are holding. Every military instinct says the same thing. Withdraw, regroup, and try again tomorrow with better positions and a healthy commander. But then, Joan gets up. She has a crossbow bolt wound that would keep most men off of their feet for weeks. She pulls the bolt out herself, even through the protests of the surgeon. She's already standing. Blood is seeping through the hastily wrapped cloth. Her face is white with pain, but her eyes, they're absolutely clear. "We will take it tonight," she says. Nobody argues with her. This is part 2 of the Joan of Arc story, The Proof at Orléans. You know how they say you can't understand someone until you walk a mile in their shoes? Well, I'd argue you can't understand a nation until you've walked through its history. Not just the highlight reel or the sanitized version you find in textbooks. I mean really getting into its DNA. Those defining moments that shaped everything that came after. Those moments where paths were chosen, where decisions were made in palaces and backrooms and city streets that changed the course of millions of lives. I'm your host, Paul, and this is Double Helix, Blueprint of Nations, where we unravel the genetic code of countries through their most transformative moments. Think of it like ancestry testing, but for entire nations. We dig deep into the historical DNA, finding those crucial moments that made countries who they are today. We left off at Chinon Castle on the evening of March 9th, 1429. Joan has just identified Charles in the throne room full of courtiers. She walked right past the decoy on the throne and knelt right before the real Dauphin. 50 people watched it happen. Charles leads Joan to a private chamber for an audience. 2 witnesses wait outside, close enough to confirm the conversation takes place, but far enough away that they can't hear what's actually said. Let me take you inside that chamber at Chinon Castle on March 9th, 1429. It is now the evening. Charles is sitting across from Joan. Not a king receiving a peasant, but 2 people facing each other across an impossible gap. He's 26, uncrowned, fighting a war he's losing, carrying a secret that could easily destroy him. She is 17, illiterate, from a village she's never visited, claiming to speak for God. Charles has spent his entire adult life wondering whether he's legitimate. His mother, Isabel of Bavaria, had multiple affairs. This is documented, acknowledged, essentially public knowledge across every court in Europe. His supposed father, Charles VI, suffered psychotic episodes so severe that he sometimes forgot his own family existed. The question of whether Charles VII is actually the son of the French king has been whispered for a decade. This matters because in medieval monarchy, legitimacy is everything. If Charles is the son of one of Isabel's lovers rather than Charles VI, then his claim to France's throne collapses. The Treaty of Troyes, the one that disinherited him, suddenly looks less like a political maneuver on the part of Henry V and more like a correction of an error. Joan knows this. She's been absorbing gossip about French politics for years now, piecing together the kingdom's fractures from refugees and soldiers passing through Domremy. She knows this is Charles's deepest wound. So she tells him what he needs to hear. She tells him that he is legitimate. God recognizes him as the true son of Charles VI. The whispers are wrong. Heaven has already made its judgment. Joan will later reveal one detail from this conversation. I told him something that only he and God knew. Historians have spent 6 centuries debating what the secret was. The legitimacy theory is the most compelling. It addresses the one doubt that no amount of political maneuvering can resolve. We will never know for sure. But whatever Joan says, it works. When they emerge, Charles looks different. Something fundamental has shifted. He's made his decision. He's going to investigate Joan properly, using the best theological minds available to him. So, he sends her to Poitiers. Let me take you to Poitiers in late March 1429. It's one of France's great university towns, home to theologians, scholars, church officials. Paris would be the obvious choice for this kind of examination, but Paris is under English occupation. Poitiers is the next best option. It will have to do. Charles has assembled a commission of scholars and churchmen. Their task? Determine whether Joan's claim of divine communication is genuine, demonic, or fraudulent. 3 possible conclusions, and only one of them helps France. The examination begins with Joan's voices. How do they manifest? What do they say? The scholars are looking for telltale signs of demonic possession. Blasphemy, theological errors, fear of holy objects. Joan gives them nothing to work with. She describes St. Michael appearing as an armored knight, accompanied by angels. St. Catherine and St. Margaret appear crowned, speaking French, filling her with a certainty and a joy that she can't describe. The scholars try harder. One theologian, educated, sharp, experienced in exactly this kind of examination, poses a question designed to catch Joan in a theological trap. You say God wants to deliver France. If God wants to deliver France, why does he need soldiers? Why does he need you? Joan's answer comes immediately, and it's devastating in its simplicity. The soldiers will fight. God will give the victory. She's claiming divine guidance while acknowledging human agency. God works through people, not instead of them. It's orthodox, Catholic theology, perfectly stated by an illiterate peasant girl who's never read a theological text in her life. Another scholar pushes harder, growing visibly frustrated. If God has already promised you victory, why do you need weapons and armor? I need them so that the soldiers will know God is working through natural means they can understand. This goes on for 3 weeks. The scholars probe her theology, her faith, her understanding of church doctrine. They look for inconsistencies. They try theological traps designed to reveal heresy or demonic influence. Joan holds up under every question with the same unshakable calm she showed in Baudricourt's hall, the same certainty she carried through the 300 miles of enemy territory. The commission also examines Joan physically. A group of noblewomen confirms that she is a virgin, the pucelle, the maid. In medieval theology, virginity carries real spiritual weight. The Virgin Mary is the supreme example of divine favor resting on purity. The fact that Joan has maintained her virginity while traveling with men through a war zone is taken as evidence of either exceptional virtue or divine protection. So after 3 weeks, the Poitiers Commission issues its report. It reads like a carefully worded institutional shrug. We find nothing heretical in her. Her faith appears genuine. Her morals are good. Given the desperate state of the kingdom, we recommend the king make use of her, humbly and without presumption of knowing God's will. Translation: we can't prove she speaks to God. We also can't prove she doesn't. And at this point, France has nothing left to lose. Back at Chinon in mid-April, Charles makes his decision. He's going to give Joan exactly what she asked for: armor, a banner, command authority, and an army. The French military establishment is furious. Joan has zero combat experience. She is 17. She's a woman in a society that considers women spiritually and physically unsuited for warfare. She's a peasant, being given authority over noble commanders who spend their entire lives training for battle. The generals who've been fighting this war for decades see Joan as an insult to everything they've sacrificed. But Charles is out of options. Orléans is going to fall unless something changes, and every conventional approach has failed. If Joan's presence can make French soldiers believe God is fighting alongside them, if that belief translates into soldiers who fight harder, hold longer, refuse to break when everything says they should, then she's worth the gamble. We are back at Chinon in mid-April of 1429. We're at the workshop where Joan is being fitted for her armor. Custom work, white plate armor like a knight would wear, except size for someone barely 5 feet tall. The armorer is skilled, experienced, and thoroughly bewildered. He spent his career making armor for men who've trained since childhood. Now he's making it for a peasant girl who claims saints talk to her. Joan specifies the details herself. White plate. The color matters, she says, because that's how St. Michael appeared to her. The banner is white too. Gold fleur-de-lis, an image of Christ in judgment, the words, Jesus Maria, written across it. Joan understands something instinctively that the military commanders have been slow to grasp. This banner will matter more than any sword. It's a visible sign. Something soldiers can see on a chaotic battlefield and know that the divine mandate is present. And then, she asked for a sword. Joan tells the armorer she wants a specific sword. It's buried behind the altar at the Church of St. Catherine in Poitiers, about 20 miles from Chinon. Joan has never been to Poitiers. She's never seen this church, never visited, has no way of knowing this sword exists unless someone told her, and nobody can produce any evidence that anyone did. She describes this location with such precision that when they send a man to dig, he finds it exactly where she said it would be. Behind the altar, wrapped in cloth, buried in the earth, a sword with 5 crosses engraved on the blade. This story travels through the French army faster than any official messenger could carry it. The girl who hears saints found a sacred sword in a church she's never visited, buried exactly where she said it was. This is finally tangible proof. Something you can hold in your hand, something real and physical, that something extraordinary is happening around Joan. The sword of Poitiers becomes a symbol before Joan has ever drawn it in combat. Soldiers start believing that God hasn't abandoned France after all, that maybe the war isn't lost, that maybe this girl in white armor is exactly what she claims to be. By late April, the army is ready. Joan rides out from Chinon at the head of a supply convoy heading north towards Orléans. She's wearing her white armor, carrying the banner of Christ, accompanied by Jean d'Alençon, a duke who's decided Joan might actually be legitimate, and Laquire, a brutal and effective field commander who's been fighting the English for years. The march takes about a week. Along the way, Joan's reputation spreads ahead of her like a wave. Villages that have been grinding through years of war hear that a girl claiming divine mandate is coming to break the siege. Some believe it. Some think she's delusional. Most people are desperate enough that they're willing to find out which one is true. Joan rides at the center of the convoy, and she's constantly praying. Her escorts watch her and notice the same thing they noticed in the journey from Vaucouleurs. She's utterly calm. The road ahead leads into a war zone towards an English army that has held Orléans for 7 months. Joan rides towards it like she's heading to a church in a Sunday morning. On April 29, 1429, Joan arrives at the gates of Orléans, and for the first time, she sees what she's come to fight. Orléans has been under siege since October 1428. 7 months of bombardment, starvation, rations, constant English pressure. The English have built a fortification around the city. Bastilles, they call them, a chain of small fortresses that form an iron noose, cutting off supplies and reinforcements, strangling the population by inches. Inside the walls, the garrison holds on because surrender means giving the city to an occupying army. The citizens are rationing food so severely that people are eating things that have no business being eaten. The defenders fight because they have nowhere else to go. Joan rides through the gates on the evening of April 29th, and the city pours into the streets. Not with celebration exactly, they're too exhausted for that, too hungry, too beaten down for celebration, but with something close to it. People come out of their homes to watch her pass. She's in white armor, carrying her banner, and she's so obviously young that it creates this strange dissonance. This is supposed to be France's salvation? This teenager? But there is something about her. The absolute certainty in the way she carries herself. The way her eyes scan the English fortifications visible in the distance with something that looks like recognition rather than fear. People watch her ride past and they feel something they haven't felt in 7 months. The possibility that this might end. The first few days are a war within a war. Joan has command authority on paper, but the French commanders have spent decades fighting this war. They have no intentions of taking orders from a peasant girl who's never even seen a real battlefield. Laquidé is the most direct about it. He's a brutal operator, an effective soldier, the kind of commander who wins ugly battles through sheer aggression and experience. He respects Joan's courage. He thinks her military instincts are dangerously naive, though. When Joan proposes attacking the English fortifications head-on, Laquidé and the other commanders push back. The English positions are strong, well manned, defended by experienced soldiers. A direct assault would be suicide. But Joan disagrees. Her voices have told her exactly what to do and when to do it. The commanders listen politely and then do what they've been doing for 7 months. Plan cautious, incremental operations that preserve their forces while achieving nothing decisive. Let me take you to the river. We're in the Loire River, just outside of Orléans, on April 29. Joan's supply convoy has finally arrived, and the food, ammunition, and weapons that Orléans desperately needs have to cross the city. The English control the south bank, which means the supplies have to go by boat. Grain barges, mostly, while English archers and crossbowmen watch from across the water. Joan rides down to the riverbank to oversee the loading. The boats are small. Loading them takes hours. Every minute, the French expect the English to open fire. A volley of arrows into the loaded barges scattering the supply run, sending months of preparation into the river. But the attack doesn't come. The English watch the boats cross and do nothing. They let the supplies through. Later, historians will debate why. Some think the English commanders miscalculated the wind and river conditions. Some think that they were saving their strength for a more decisive moment. Joan believes God held the English's hand. Whatever the reason, Orléans is finally resupplied. The news hasn't been cut, but the city can breathe again, and Joan has her first victory without firing a single shot. On May 4th is when everything changes. Joan is inside the city when she hears fighting, actual combat, somewhere to the northeast. She hasn't ordered any attacks. She rides towards the sound and finds French soldiers engaging the English at St. Loup, one of the outer bastilles. The other commanders launched this attack without telling her. They're still running the war as they've always run it. The attack isn't going well initially, but the English are counterattacking, and the French soldiers are starting to waver. Joan rides into the middle of it, her banner streaming behind her, white against the smoke and the chaos, visible for every French soldier on that stretch of the battlefield. The French win at St. Loup, one fortification among many. It doesn't break the siege by itself, but the effect on morale is immediate and enormous. Joan rode into the first real battle and the French won. The soldiers who fought beside her start to believe what the stories have been saying. God is with this girl. May 6. The French attack Les Augustins, another English position. This battle is harder, bloodier, and lasts most of the day. Joan is in the thick of it again, her banner always moving towards the heaviest fighting. The French take Les Augustins, but at a real cost. Joan herself takes a minor wound, a cut that bleeds freely but heals quickly. The commanders want to rest now, regroup, plan the next assault with the care it deserves. But Joan tells them the next attack happens tomorrow. On May 7th, the assault on Les Tourelles. This is the fortification that really matters. Les Tourelles controls the bridge over the Loire, the gateway that holds the entire siege together. If it falls, the English position collapses completely. Everyone on both sides knows this. The English had fortified it heavily, manned it with their best soldiers, and prepared for exactly this type of assault. It is May 7th of 1429. Let's go back to where we opened the episode. It is now late afternoon. The assault has been grinding on since dawn. The French have thrown everything at Les Tourelles. Ladders, siege weapons, wave after wave of infantry. The English have held every single time. The fighting on the bridge is some of the most brutal combat of the entire 100 Years' War. Men fighting hand-to-hand on a structure barely wide enough for 3 abreast. Men falling into the Loire below, drowning under the weight of their own armor. The English are disciplined, experienced, and fighting with the knowledge that if this fortification falls, everything else falls apart too. Joan has been at the front all day. Her commanders have begged her to stay back. She's a symbol of the entire army. If she falls, it could shatter the belief that's been holding them together. But Joan refuses. Her voices tell her to be at the front, so she's at the front. And then the bolt hits. It punches through the gap in her armor, the one vulnerable point between breastplate and shoulder guard, deep into the flesh below her collarbone. Joan stumbles, goes down, and soldiers carry her behind the lines. The field surgeon examines her. Serious wound, survivable if she rests. The commanders gather around, and for the first time in 9 days, they're all in agreement. The assault is over. Joan needs to heal. They'll try again tomorrow with better position. Joan gets up. She pulls the bolt out herself. The surgeon objects. Joan is already standing, already bleeding through the wrapping, already looking back towards Les Tourelles with an expression that the soldiers around her will remember for the rest of their lives. It's not defiance, it's not stubbornness. It is absolute, unshakable certainty that what they're about to do is going to work. We will take it tonight, she says. And here's what you have to understand about what Joan has done to this army over the past 9 days. Every battle she's fought, they've won. Every time she's been at the front, the English have given ground. She's been wounded and she got back up. The soldiers who've been fighting beside her, men who spent 7 months watching this siege go nowhere, have started to believe something they stopped believing months ago. That God is actually on their side. So when Joan rides back towards Les Tourelles on a fresh horse, her banner streaming behind her, blood seeping through the wrapping on her chest, the French soldiers who were preparing to withdraw do the only thing they can do. They follow her. The English at Les Tourelles see Joan coming back. They see the French army surging forward again, past exhaustion, past pain, past every calculation that says this assault should have ended an hour ago. And for the first time in 7 months of holding their position, something cracks inside the English defenders. Their fortification holds. The weapons are ready. Their training is sound. Their belief that they're winning, that's what breaks. Les Tourelles falls that evening. The English surrender the position and the survivors retreat across the Loire. May 8 dawns to an empty battlefield. The English have finally withdrawn, not just from Les Tourelles, but from the entire siege. The ring of bastilles that had been strangling Orléans for 7 months are finally abandoned. The English army packs up and marches away. The siege is broken. Joan rides back into Orléans on May 8th, and the city pours into the streets. People are crying, soldiers are on their knees praying. The garrison defenders, men who've been fighting on starvation rations for 7 months, are embracing each other and weeping. Joan rides through all of it, still in her bloodied armor, still carrying her banner, and she's crying too. Not from pain, though the wound hurts, but for something that she can't quite put into words. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, or the sheer weight of having just done something that every rational calculation said was impossible. 9 days. She broke a 7-month siege in 9 days. So here's what just happened at Orléans, and why it matters beyond the military victory itself. Joan didn't win because she was a tactical genius. French commanders around her, Laquidé, d'Alencon, men who spent decades studying warfare, were better soldiers in every conventional sense. Joan won because she made the French army believe that they were fighting with God on their side. And that belief translated into soldiers who fought harder, held longer, and refused to break when everything said they should. And it turned out to be worth more than any tactical advantage. This is the template Joan created at Orléans. The idea that conviction itself is a force on the battlefield. That a soldier who believes God is watching fights differently than one who doesn't. That religious certainty can override exhaustion, pain, and rational calculations about when to retreat. France had been losing this war for decades. French soldiers were brave. French armies were capable, but they've stopped believing that they could win. Joan, in 9 days, rebuilds that belief from the ground up. And once it's rebuilt, everything changes. The siege of Orléans makes Joan famous across Europe overnight. Within weeks, her name reaches every court from London to Rome. The English call her a witch. The French call her the Maid of Orléans. Charles VII, receiving news of the victory at Chinon, realizes he made the right gamble. Biggest gamble any French king has ever made, and it paid off. But Orléans is just the beginning. Joan's voices haven't gone quiet. They're telling her that the next step is to march north, clear the English from the Loire Valley, and crown Charles at Rome. Coronation that will transform him from an uncrowned claimant into the consecrated, legitimate king of France. Next time on Double Helix, the march to Rome. After Orléans, Joan pushes for something that terrifies Charles almost as much as the war does: his coronation. We'll watch Joan lead the French army through a string of victories that shatters English power along the Loire. We'll see the political maneuvering as Charles tries to negotiate peace while Joan demands total victory. And we'll witness the moment at Rome's cathedral when a girl who heard voices in her father's garden crowns the king and embeds something in French monarchy that will echo through centuries. Until then, Thank you for listening. We will see you soon.